Backyard Professor Chess videos. Hey, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting so sick of getting my butt kicked online in chess. But you know, I look at it this way, and maybe this will help some people. I'm saying this for my sake. Every game of chess we play, every game of chess we play through, Grandmasters, Masters, just for pure enjoyment, for whatever reason. Every game you play against a chess computer, you're one game closer to chess mastery. Whether you win or lose. That's the optimistic way to look at it. And I have to look at it that way because when I study hard and I try to learn some stuff and then I play and I lose 3 and 4 and 5 straight games in a row, I'm like that young Bobby Fischer that ran out of the tournament hauling tears. I'm so mad and upset I can't hardly see straight. I can't even spit in a straight line. So this is the idea. It's a process. And my wife keeps telling me, she says, you know, every time you play that dumb game, you sound like you're in perfect misery. Well, man, she got a point. I grumble, I gripe, I shout, I holler, I yell, I get on my bike and ride up the hill and back to work off my frustration and energy. But every game we play means we're practicing. And every game you lose, every game you win is another step in the process toward our goal, right? Even though it can be damnably frustrating, it's okay. And I'm saying that for my sake more than you guys. So when I re-watch these videos, I'll be able to say, yeah, you know, pay attention to yourself, dude. Okay, so we've had some requests, and being the convenient, nice, and very dashing, clever backyard professor that I am, haha, you guys have asked about a King's Gambit series of videos. Okay, so I've started these videos, these series of chess openings, right? And what have I done? The Gioco Piano, the Ruy Lopez, King's Indian Defense, and some others. Now you want a King's Gambit, right? So here's the basis of the King's Gambit. King pawn opening, your opponent responds with the king pawn, and then you throw up this F pawn up here and challenge him, hey, take that pawn. This is the beginning, this is the foundation, as it were, of the King's Gambit. And now you have a King's Gambit accepted, you have a King's Gambit declined, etc. Now I'm going to tell you guys something, and you really have to listen to this, you have to understand something. Memorizing a whole bunch of lines and openings is not the best way to study chess. I promise, it's not. Because let's say you spend 10 years of your life memorizing 16, 17 moves deep, 30 different chess openings for white, 30 different chess openings for black. What happens if in the 5th move your opponent plays out of the book, off the book? It's not one of your memorized lines. You can't just keep moving what you've memorized. It'll throw you off. Now you have to play based on principles, on themes, on patterns, on specific types of squares depending on what the board tells you to. So, ironically, now we amateurs, we beginners, we love the openings because we get trounced so easy. We've got to at least learn a few openings so that we don't get beat quite so bad. And yeah, that's understandable. But it's the end game that is the most important phase to study. And yes, the middle game is the most exciting phase. You know, that's where you get all your brilliant combinations, astonishing queen and rook sacrifices, and so on and so forth. I understand all that. So I'm showing you openings to give you some themes and ideas. But this isn't the best way to study chess. I'm just letting you know. If all you're going to do is memorize opening moves and think you're going to start winning, you better think again, because that's not the right way to study. However, the process of studying how the Grandmasters use the chess openings, now this is proper study. And that's why I'm showing you and illustrating, from an amateur point of view, of course, the Grandmaster games. Now this particular game is by Richard Reti and a man named Flamberg. Reti is playing the white, Flamberg's playing the black pieces. This is simply one of the most breathtaking games I've ever seen. This is utterly astonishing how Reddy plays this game. Richard Reddy was one of the hyper-moderns. He lived in the age of Nimzovich and Spielman and Capablanca and Alekin. Played some phenomenal chess, one of the very strongest players never to be world champion. He was very, very powerful. The knight comes up here to block the further movement of the pawn. And a typical king's gambit is going to bring this pawn up to support this pawn. This is actually a fairly typical way the king gambit opens. And then the bishop c4. You get your development, hitting the weak f7 pawn, of course, with this bishop out to c4. Typical opening. g4, he continues pushing the pawn. You notice in the king's gambit for the first, it depends on who you play through, the first 8 moves are mostly pawn moves, man. It's really kind of a weird opening. And in the 19th century, the king's gambit was all the rage. It was the cat's meow. It was the one everybody loved to play. Not so much these days, although I'll admit Boris Spassky was in love with it. And he actually beat Bobby Fischer with the King's Gambit. Fischer was so disgusted with it that he actually published a refutation of it later on. And I believe I can find that game for you to show it to you. You've probably already seen it. So this is kind of fun to see how a King's Gambit works. Richard Reddy just manhandles this King Gambit in such a unique way. It's utterly amazing. And the reason I like it, of course, is because I'm studying Jeremy Silman's materials, and there is so much Jeremy Silman materials in the Grandmaster games, it's kind of fun to point it out to you as I run across it, more or less. Now he pulls the d5. He's going to challenge the center. He's actually challenging the bishop, because he really doesn't like seeing the bishop point to that weak f7 square, right? You've got a pawn attempting to take the knight, and Reddy is willing to sacrifice that knight. Now this is interesting. You don't see that in all the King Indian games whatsoever. E takes d5. Reddy is spurning his knight. He says, away with that silly animal. It must be one of those wild Mustangs either in Idaho or Utah or Wyoming that's being such a pestilentious problem for the ranchers. So, of course, Flamberg takes it. Reddy takes the pawn with the rook. No, he doesn't. Good grief, I'm falling asleep. Reddy takes the pawn with the queen. Now, from here on out, we're going to see a very interesting phenomenon by Richard Reddy. Bishop d6. Okay, now we're beginning, we've had several pawn moves, now we're beginning to get some piece activity here. Reddy comes straight up the gut. Now, and you say, well, you know, Reddy's in trouble double pawns. Look at those double pawns. Don't tell me those are weak double pawns. You know, wow, right up the gut. They're covering, they're possessing as well as hitting essential central squares all the way up. You've got a queen back up, you've got a bishop back up. This is a wonderful setup for Reddy. Queen comes out to f6. Ladies are coming out and making their presence known. Watch what Reddy does. Check. Queen e4, check. Now, one area that virtually everyone from Lipnitsky, Nimzovich, Spielman, Alekin, Carlsen, all of them, Botvinnik, Karpov, Kasparov, Fischer, Erva, all of the great grandmasters and world champions say fight for the center. You don't have to possess it with pieces or pawns, but influence it. Fight for it. Watch what Richard Reddy does. You will see the center completely dominated by white from here on out the rest of this game. This is breathtaking how he does this. And there's nothing, it seems, that black can do. Okay, you block the check with your queen. Nice, right? Does Reddy worry about that? Nope, he keeps right on developing pieces. See, he's got the queen pinned. but he's not going to back down and move his queen away. He stays in possession and he brings up another piece. See, it's easy to comment after the game has been played about chess. But to be able to implement this stuff in our chess games, that's why we practice, isn't it? And I really try. It's just that everybody and their dog does it so much better than me because I'm such a beginner. So this is great practice to absorb and see and experience how the grandmasters play their chess games. This is very excellent. Develop the power. Bring out the pieces. Develop the pieces. Bishop comes up, takes that pawn at f4. Total, pure possession of that magnificent center. This is classic for Richard Reddy. This is beautiful. Well, he's obviously dominating the center far too much, so queen takes the queen. Get rid of some of that central influence. Do it! Do it! No! As my lousy imitation of Arnold Schwarzenegger is, well, knight takes queen 4, again, total dominance of the center, hitting the bishop. This is fabulous. Bishop takes the f. Get rid of some of that central influence. And Richard Reddy has opened in such a unique manner that he just keeps bringing up the reserves and totally possessing not only extra central territory, but the entire center itself. Bonk! He just globs it all right there. Pure power. This is fabulous. F5, Richard Reddy says, oh, thanks. I'll take the pawn too. He has no respect for the black pieces whatsoever. He owns that center. And it completely dominates and influences the game. Well, knight comes up here to e7. You got to start doing something, Flamberg. Reddy is mowing you over. That is quite picturesque, isn't it? Now, rook e1 brings his entire army, piece by piece by piece by piece. Not only does he influence the center, my gosh, he parks everything on the center and in the center. Beautiful domination. Very interesting. He doesn't leave one piece out. He puts the whole bit into the equation. You'll notice, knight b6 over here, you'll notice that Flamberg is simply not getting all his pieces in, while Reddy is absolutely, completely, totally bringing in his army. This is very important for us to try to practice, to put into our games every time we know how. Bishop b5, check to the king. Moves over to d8. Rook f to e5. Pawns and pieces, man, on absolutely the most 4 important squares on the whole chessboard. He is absolutely bonk on those squares. That's phenomenal, isn't it? It really is phenomenal. Knight comes over here to g6, putting the question to the rook. You think Reddy cares? He doesn't care at all. Well, where does he put this? Knight g5. Let him take the rook. I don't care. See, the key in this game is, as I have said time and again, this is another beautiful illustration of why Silman makes such a big deal about it and why I make such a big deal about it. The key to this game is the central space, the center possession, and that phenomenal E file. The only open file, and Reddy dominates it completely. Criminy man, Flamberg can't even get his rooks in this game. He can't even develop them yet because Reddy is just overwhelming him in the center with extra territory and on that open file with those rooks. Absolutely phenomenal. So when his rook is threatened, does he respond to his opponent? Heck no, man. He just keeps right on trucking. You can see he's coming to here. You would think Flamberg would catch a clue. Dude, come on. Pull it together. He's coming to the fork with you. Nope. He needs to take the material. The center is too overwhelmingly dominated with possession and influence, and so he's going to try to take away from that. Rook takes e5. Again, bringing up, because he's developed every single piece. He brings up more and more reserves, and he continues to literally, physically possess those central squares. That is outstanding. I don't know if I've ever seen a game quite do this like Reddy did here. This is incredible. Well, bishop d7. And you know, really, for a Grandmaster, you know, actually I'm not sure Flamberg was a Grandmaster. Reddy certainly was. This was played in 1912. Maybe it's young Reddy and young Flamberg. This might be before Reddy was a Grandmaster and before he was playing a Grandmaster, because I simply can't comprehend that Flamberg didn't see that. But that's Reddy's next move. Check, dude! And the king dodges over to c8, and of course the knight's going to take the rook. But of course, that's a beautiful fork, and that's a beautiful possession. And he still is physically in the center directly. Phenomenal. Well, bishop takes the bishop at b5. That's pretty good, isn't it? Sure. Too little, too late. Rook h5. He's going to clean out the h-file for himself. Bishop to c4. Now he finally begins dispersing his central influence, but notice how absolutely, completely, totally, without any question, the king side is completely cleared out. Is that not phenomenal? Flamberg is in one small, tight, little, compact corner. Richard Reddy is absolutely everywhere else. That is phenomenal. Bishop takes d5. Hey, finally he gets rid of the doubled pawn. Big deal, right? Now he's going to push this pawn. This pawn right here, this wonderful little h-pawn, it's going to cost black a piece. Just watch how this works. This is so interesting. Bishop e4 now. Come on, he's centralizing his piece. You can't argue with him there, right? No, you can't. Rook dodges over to g7, clears the way for that pawn to get in. Bishop takes another pawn, c2. So he might have the pawn majority on the queen side. That's nice, isn't it? It's irrelevant to Richard Reddy. He has possessed the center so strongly in this game that now he's got nothing but passed pawns, and he's going to run them in. Well, Flamberg says, heck, if you can, I can. And Reddy says, I'll race you, dude. h6, Flamberg says, okay, I'll bring down a4. He says, all right, that's fine. I'll go all the way to h7. And it's virtually to the point now to where Flamberg says, hey, wait a minute, man. Not only did you beat me in the foot race, but I have to take that. And Reddy says, yes, please, good sir, do take that pawn with your bishop, and it'll cost you your power. And that's exactly what he does, and that's exactly what Reddy does. Is he says, okay, thank you for the bishop. I will be happy to exchange that. And the knight comes up to c4, again, hitting his pawns. Now notice what he does here. Have you noticed something interesting? Reddy doesn't care what Flamberg does. You know, Flamberg brought his bishop out here and then he took a pawn. Reddy didn't care. He just raised his own pawn up there and he put it in such a situation that it cost Flamberg a piece. So now that Flamberg is yet bringing out another piece and threatening threatening the pawn with his knight, does Reddy care about the pawn? Not at all. Watch what he does. Knight comes out here to f7. He's doing his own thing. Rook comes up here to a6. Does Reddy care about what he does? No. Now he's going to start pushing his second pawn on g4. He's got a pawn in danger. Does he care? No. Because he yet has a much more powerful attack here on this side. Check. King comes up to d7. Get out of check. Powie. Knight e5. Check. King comes up here to e6, out of check. Does he care about his knight? Does he care about his pawn? No. He's going to push this cotton-picking pawn in. Knight comes down here to d1. Rook comes up here to f8, over to f8. This is an important rook move. What Reddy is going to do now is, this rook takes possession of the open file again, and it separates the king from the pawn. The pawn will go queen, because that king can never get over there. Does he give a flying flip about any of the rook or the majority of pawns on this side? Pfft, don't worry about it. Separate the king and then run your pawn in. And that's exactly what he does. Knight comes up here to e3, so what? That doesn't mean a thing. King f2 threatened the knight. Knight comes bebopping up here to d5. Now it finally, late, Flamberg is starting to fight for the center, but this game is already over, because now he's just going to simply push the g-pawn in. And in fact, that is where Flamberg resigns, because he realizes, man, I played this all wrong. That demonstration of how to possess a center to completely dominate the game and run pawns in for a queen in the King's Gambit is actually one of the coolest games I have ever seen. So, hey, there's your chessercise. Have fun, be good, do well, keep on trucking. Play lots of chess so that, like me, you can lose your thousands of games in order to get to chess mastery. Because every Grandmaster says it. You will, on the way to chess mastery, you will lose thousands of games. So the sooner you get that noise over with, the sooner we can study the Grandmaster games and enjoy how to play real good chess. And remember, you betcha, baby, I will see you in the next chess video.